Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode. Today, we are going to give you the best advice I can on the very first question I ever had as a young new author, and that is how to write a story. How does one go about telling the tale of tales? And where to begin is, in all honesty, what this question entails is where do you start? And I have some points that I'm going to go through and going to try and figure out what is best for you, because what's best for me isn't best for you, everyone, and what's best for everyone isn't best for me. So take what you can, use what you want, and see what you can get out of it. If you don't get anything out of it other than a couple new takes on an old topic, then by all means, thank you for watching. But if you're wanting to find that answer, maybe I can help you. How I started was I had an idea and I was very enthusiastic about it. And it was just like the idea of I can write I can write this super cool story and no one can stop me. That's kind of how I took it. Like, this is something that I can do. No one else can do. I can write my story. No one can write your story for you. That's something that I learned. There are people that can help you write it, but unless you write it, no one will. And so I was kind of challenged myself, like, what can I write that people will read? And that last bit is the key factor. What people will read and how to. That is a later question. That is a way later question to ask. I hear a bunch of people like all these gurus say, it's just so dumb just to watch these gurus nowadays. Like, oh, you need to write what's popular. You need to write what's on the click right now, especially if it's self-publishing. Oh, you have to write the fast, quick pace romantasy. That's what's in right now. It's like, yeah, but that's gonna probably die off after a little while. Like, if you actually go and look at the numbers right now, it's kind of funny to watch. Like, they skyrocketed. When was it? Like 2019 till 2023, I want to say. And then they kind of they went up, and then they plateaued. If you look at the numbers, they actually haven't gained very many. They kind of just stole where the romance was and like, oh, this is something new. Kind of like how what my mom reads, the Amish books, Amish romance books and stuff like that. Like, that had a big spike when they first started coming out with those, and then it plateaued. So I wouldn't say necessarily, maybe if you see a trend, yeah, if you want to be a trend setter and you want to write trendy books, go ahead. But in my professional opinion, take that as you will, I would say write what you want to write. Write what... this is kind of how I kind of look at it. Come up with an idea. If you want to do a specific genre, cool. I would say don't put your story in a box yet. It's just out there. You're putting the Lego pieces together. It's not in a box. You don't need to put it in a box to protect it. That's for later. You're building the Lego right now. And technically you're building the the instruction manual of how you need to put your Lego piece together. That is what you're doing. To put it in an easy, simple term, you're building the instructions of what you're going to do later. And it doesn't mean that, oh, I'm a plotter, so yes, I have to do this, or I am a panzer. It doesn't matter if you're a panzer. It doesn't matter if you're a plotter. You still have to brainstorm exactly, like, kind of an idea of what you want to do. I'm a bit of a both. I started out as a panzer, and now I'm a plotter to, like, the up 10th degree. And it's made my life so much easier, I'll be honest. I love panzering, but at the same time, I've learned that I need to plot. But we'll get into that later on. First, we're starting off with the idea. The very first book that I wrote, I guess you could say, was when I was riding in the back of my parents' car, and we were driving actually down here to Florida in 2014, I believe. And 11 years ago. That's so weird. And I just had this idea of, like, I would just stare out the window, and I was on the passenger side, so I got to see the rise and fall of the driveways and the shoulder on the passenger side. And I would always envision these motorcycles just riding it, jumping up, coming down, jumping up. And I was like, oh, it'd be so cool to write a motorcycle styled like action book. And it kind of grew from there. I'm like, oh, I like ninjas. What if I did ninjas? Well, since it's a motorbike, it needs to be kind of futuristic to a degree. It needs to have that cyberpunk. So I went and I wrote a espionage action ninja sci-fi thriller. That is what I wrote for my first book. And it, as anyone can try and find on the internet, it never published. It is still sitting on the shelf, proverbial shelf somewhere. And instead, I went with the second best option that I came up with. My second idea was a fantasy series. That fantasy idea series has actually changed dramatically. It went from having these weird pets that gave them their magic powers to they have their own magic powers, and some of them have pet creatures, magical creatures. But other than that, like the elemental style is the same. I use elemental magic. Like I had this idea. I was like, okay, what do I need to do? What do I want to write? So I brainstormed, obviously. So that was kind of the first thing. And then I chose my favorites. So for my first book, I chose ninjas. I chose motorcycles. For my second book, I chose fantasy. I chose like swords and sorcery. I chose like this elemental. I loved the Avatar, obviously. I don't know who doesn't love the Avatar. The Last Airbender. The blue people are okay, I guess, if you like Breaking Edge movies. But after The Last Airbender, not we won't talk about the blue people for now. That's a way later topic. And so I chose. So you brainstorm ideas. You pick your favorite ideas, and the rule of cool, what Brandon Sanderson says, you always want the rule of cool. The cooler it is, the better it is. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to bring in your rule of cool at the beginning of your book or anything like that, but something cool. So for my book, the cool thing is the magic system, to a degree, it's very much Avatar. They have to do certain moves. It's all about breathing, and relegating like how much you breathe. I don't harp on it very much, which I think people like a little bit better, because like, yes, I focus on it a little bit, especially during the training, but at the same time, I kind of let them assume a good bit about the magic system, and I just use it as a tool. It's something cool to use. It's not a rule. And another thing I did was I added dragons, and I actually don't call, so there are dragons in my book, and then there are regals. And it's the Game of Thrones dragon, aka a wyvern, and I just call them regals because they're so big. I added those, and then there's a side character that I have his name is Corax, and I just wanted there to be some type of bird companion that the main character has. And those were kind of my rule of cools. And funny enough, the dragons kind of got pushed to the back burner for the first kind of couple books. The spin-off book that I'll be doing actually is all about dragons, racing dragons in the same world and basically in the same timeline as the fantasy series, at least the first book. I digress. So the rule of cool. And then once you kind of get an idea, like, see, I have all those ideas, like, oh, I want this crow, I want the main character to have fire magic, I want them to be in this fantasy world. It's like, okay, so we got those two, and then plot. So my plot idea was I wanted to have, what if an assassin, well, how did I say it? What if an assassin became king? And it kind of grew from that, but that was the core idea. What if a prince became an assassin and then became king? That's kind of where it revolved around. It wasn't the major theme of the book, but it's a very core, like it's embedded into the story. So we got our three things: world, plot, character. World, plot, character. And which one do you start with? Well, in my opinion, you can start with any of them. You can start with World. There was one book series that I have to be determined that I started out with the World. And the World was very Narnia-esque. World War II, but in the Pacific. And it was people with wings. The main character gets taken to this portal world. He finds out he has angel-like wings. He's a part of this winged people society. And that is kind of one aspect where I started out with the world, and then I wanted the world of people with wings. That is what I wanted. People with wings and how they would live. The character is what I did next, obviously. The main character is a World War II pilot who gets stuck in this storm at the end of World War II in the Pacific, and a lightning bolt strikes his ship and breaking a seal on him, which transports him to this fantasy world. I would almost call it a paranormal / portal world because it uses a lot of real world aspects. So that would be character, and the plot is he's here, now what? How is he gonna get home? Obviously, it was very Narnia-esque, and I still have it on the table to do eventually. But that's one where I started out with the world. The other way you can do it is plot. So I actually started my sci-fi book series that I'm trying to write, which you can go and find on, I think it's Reamsy, I believe is how it's pronounced. If you can find it off of my Instagram page if you want. I believe the link is in my bio. You can check that. If not, I'll put it in below. And I started with plot, and technically I have two kind of sci-fi of the same universe that I'm doing. But the first one I wanted to do was plot. I wanted to do a sci-fi war themed book where this journalist becomes a alien warrior, basically. That's the best way to put it. And the second book is going to be a dystopian where this hacker, cyber techie girl kind of figures out about what happened in book one during the war and how messed up her actual society that she's living in is, and how to beat them and how to beat the ruling class, basically. And then the third one, I already have the idea of, it's going to be a spy thriller, and it's probably going to be 2 books. So I already have a couple books in that series lined up, but it's time for bed. It's 8 o'clock here. It's 8 p.m. No, I'm just joking. That is my alarm that always goes off at 8 p.m. though. My wife might actually call me. Yay. Anyways, and then one where I started out with character is my fantasy book series that I've actually come up with now. And it was focused primarily around my main character, Hagatan, or Tan, Ignis. And we follow Tan as he goes through his life and his journey. It's very much epic fantasy, but not styled like the Tolkien. Like, it is definitely epic fantasy in the fact that it's Brandon Sanderson's storytelling in a Lord of the Rings styled world. I don't describe stuff like Tolkien does, and I don't write as much detail as Brandon does, which I think will hit a more younger audience, which is why I have it based towards YA audience. And at the time, that's what I was writing. As the story grows and the story builds, it definitely will hit a little bit older audience towards the end. Older audiences still can read it, obviously, but it is definitely easier. It's an easier read is how I would say it. But that's one where I started out with character. Once you get these ideas, it makes it so much easier on building off of them. And what I would suggest is you pick one, whether it be world, plot, character, find which one, write something cool about it. Write something you want to find interesting about it. And then once you do that, start on the next one. But when you do it, make sure you put a time limit, because like me, I actually took, I don't know how long it's been. I've actually had this fantasy book series since 2015, maybe 2016. The true, this is what it's going to be. I didn't publish it till last year. So that was nearly 8 years, 9 years, 8 years, I think. And if you get stuck in a rut, just step away for a little bit. I wouldn't say forever, and then come back. Especially if you feel like you're getting in a rabbit hole. If you feel like you're getting in a rabbit hole, stop whatever you're doing. Do something else in line with what you're doing. Just don't get stuck. So set a time limit. Even if that's I will spend the first week of me coming up with world building stuff on what I'm wanting to do. Then another week where I just focus on all the characters. And then the third week, oh, this is the plot. And I would say that's probably the easiest way to build your story, is start with world, then do character, and then do plot. Because until you get the first two, you really can't do plot. I mean, you can, but it sometimes is harder unless you have an idea for the world and characters already. I mean, then technically you've already done world and character already. So by default, you've already done it if you start with plot. And if you start with plot, then go ahead and start with plot and actually go ahead and start plotting out what you're going to do. That means you're probably a plotter, if I'm being honest. If you have this idea for a story and you're like, oh, I want them to be doing this. I want them to find a dragon. I want them to ride the dragon. I want them to learn how to ride the dragon then. I want them to go back to the village and save the village. I bet you can't tell me what story that is. I'll give you 3 guesses. Comment below. If you want to, you can, but at the same time, it's like you've already started with the plot. Just go from there. You can fill in the gaps later. I promise. Editing will help you fill in the gaps later. So just wait. You'll see. I say that vicariously. Very carefully, I mean. But yeah, I don't know why I said that. So I think I've kind of babbled on long enough. In my notes, it looks like I'm towards the end. What did I write here? Set a time limit. We went over that. The less you have and the less you give the reader, the more your reader wants to know. Kind of like if you ever watched Indiana Jones. Yes, probably seen it 1,000 times, but the first time you watched it, you did not know that when he got to that gap, I'm pretty sure this is the second one, when he got to that cavern and his dad told him to walk across. Just walk across. No one knew what was going to happen. And I'm not going to say what happened unless you've watched it, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't watched it, I'm not spoiling it for you. But if we didn't know what was going to happen, like he's walking off a cliff. He literally is walking off a cliff. We have no idea what's going to happen next. That's suspense. That's what suspense is. Not telling a reader something. So the less you have, the less you tell, the more the reader wants to read. You tell them as it progresses. What I'm going to be going over in the next couple of videos is a breakdown of these 3 parts: world, character, plot. That is what I'm probably going to be focusing on next. Is probably world, because it's just easier to start with world first, because then you can build off of that. You can basically start with any of them. But as a beginner, a world is easier just because of the fact of you have an idea. You might have a character, you might have a plot, but world is where it's usually the coolest. And I'd rather get that out of the way and give you the warnings and what you would probably want to do versus something that will lead you to a dead end. Not to say that characters or plot is going to do that in any shape, way, or form, just in case. And that's how I kind of started, and it kind of makes it easier for me. So we'll start there, and we'll build off of that. So I'll probably do several things on world. I'll do a broad overview of world, and then I'll break it down. Like character, like if I did characters, like character can be broken down into main character, side character, NPC, villain, side characters. What's another one? Main lead, side lead. It can be broken down into so many different things, and I kind of want to break that down individually for you, and then I'll get it back to you. And if you want to, I will leave the link for that next video here, so that way you can just go right into it. Until next time, I am your little journalist writing unoriginal stories. Until next time.